I'm Helen Norbury, and this is Becoming Unapologetically Me, the show all about authentic self-expression with expert guests from the fields of health, leadership, and mindset. This show is here to show you that you don't need to conform to the expectations that friends, family, and society have of you, and actually what we can unearth when we find the courage to become the unapologetic version of who we are. Grab a cup of coffee and get your notepad out for this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Becoming Unapologetically Me. Today, I'm really excited to be talking to Samantha Bradshaw. Samantha left the traditional legal world and now helps women protect their big ideas, own their voice, and build businesses with clarity and confidence. So obviously a topic that's really close to our hearts here. So Samantha, I just thought I'd start by asking, what's the moment that you realized that the traditional legal world just didn't really align with the life that you wanted to live anymore?
I think there's 2 points where I realized that the legal world wasn't going to be particularly suited to how I view life. First was that in law school, it's a big deal if you get accepted into a big law firm. And literally, it's called big law, if you're not familiar with the legal industry. And it's a handful of companies, of law firms that are, based in big hotshot places like New York, London, Dubai, Paris to some extent, Geneva. And these are places where when they hire you, they give you a fat salary, truly. But they do expect you to be working like 16-hour days. You have to bill 2,400 hours a year. And for folks who aren't familiar with that, it means lawyers generally track their time and bill by the hour. So if it takes a lawyer longer to do something, you pay more in the traditional world. I understood, I think, inherently what it meant to be billing 2,400 hours a year. And it essentially means you have no life. I wanted nothing to do with that from the beginning. So that was a particularly easy one to know I was trying to avoid. And instead of trying around for local firms or trying to get into something that wasn't big law, maybe more boutique, I decided to up and leave to Lebanon, which brings me to my second story. While I was in Lebanon, I was working for a lovely firm over there that I was part of the team that helped expand it from just a Lebanese law firm to a regional firm on 3 different continents now, which is super exciting. But in particular, I went to my boss and was like, I want a raise. I want more money. He's like, in order for me to give you a raise, you need to be bringing more money into the firm. You need to be a rainmaker. You need to bring in clients. I was all of 24, 5 maybe. Okay, cool. Can you show me how to do that? Because I had no idea. Anyway, I was fortunate enough that I had a very dear friend who wanted to open a board game cafe in Lebanon. He had this belief that board games could be healing for people. That could be a form of therapy that maybe they weren't willing to go get on their own. And particularly in a country that has such generational trauma like Lebanon because of outside forces that have just made things very difficult there, and inside forces that have made things very difficult there for a very long time. He thought this would be an amazing thing to open there. And he wanted to open a board game cafe. And in Lebanon, there's this amazing idea that I think every country should have it. Every business has to have a lawyer, and you have to register that lawyer when you start the business, right? In the same way that you have to have a registered agent in most places in case the government needs to send you paperwork so they know where to find you, who to give you the paperwork for. Businesses in Lebanon have to have a lawyer. For me, this is a huge deal because it means you have somebody on your side that you can ask those questions, those legal questions, that literally is registered with your business. So he wanted to open this new company. And like, man, I bring your company to my firm. I have to bring in clients. You need a lawyer. My firm can do this. Let's go. Brought him in, sat him down with my managing partner. And I mean, he was bootstrapping this, right? His family didn't come from a bunch of money. He was trying to do something good for the community, things that I think a lot of us really resonate with. And when my managing partner said the price that it was going to cost, I saw like his face just dropped. It was not remotely obtainable for him. He's opening a physical space. He has to buy chairs. He has to buy tables. He has to buy hundreds of glasses. He has to have the board games, right? These are non-negotiable expenses that he has to put out. The legal fee is something that like, okay, like I need wiggle room on this. So what happened? He wound up actually going with another lawyer who gave him terrible advice for like 2 years. He quit and left that lawyer and went and got a new one once the business was going well. And I'm very excited to say the business has now opened their third location in Lebanon. And they're looking at expanding internationally now. So all worked out in the end, but I'm sitting there watching him in that boardroom, like, I don't want to say no to people like this. I don't want somebody else to be the reason I say no. I want to be the one that says, we can make this work, right? Maybe we give you something, a smaller package, like we can work with your budget. I didn't want to see people's dreams like that, things that were genuinely going to help the community that they were in. I didn't want to see those fall apart because of a lawyer. That's ridiculous. Couldn't stand either of those two things and decided to rile against the system for all of it.
Amazing. What a great example of sort of standing to your values and your beliefs. That's, so many of us will kind of push against it, but not actually stand against it. So, what an amazing example. So you mentioned that you needed to unlearn some of the shoulds. So what were some of those most powerful ones that you had to release to become unapologetically you?
The biggest one was really in the way that I thought I should dress, especially in the legal world. It's very conservative, very conservative. I actually got yelled at by a judge in Richmond, Virginia when I was 16 in July in the heat of summer because I wasn't wearing pantyhose with my suit. Like, I'm not sure what position you have. Like, I'm in a suit and everything is very high cut. It's all very conservative, skirt suit, even not even pantsuit. Like, sir, I understand this profession, but like, okay. And moments like that really drilled into my head exactly how conservative this profession can be, right? You have to exist in dark blue, black, gray, pantyhose, apparently, in the heat of July. And if you've been to Virginia in July, you will know it is humid. It is like swimming through soup that is like medium temperature while you're walking down the street. It's rough. I don't recommend Virginia in July. Lovely in June, lovely in October. Don't do it in July and August. And of course, when I started working properly as my own lawyer, I still had this idea that I couldn't be in things other than black, blue, gray. It had to be very high cut. You couldn't have any fun with it. No jewelry. Even my hair. I made my hair a bit darker. It's generally quite auburn. And that's a color that's not common in general, but certainly not in the legal world. And I'm like, okay, if I can just make it a little darker, a little more on the brown side, all of this, I can create this little conservative bubble. And for someone who was, first generation college student, certainly first generation law student, certainly first generation lawyer, fitting into that world felt really important. And now, honestly, these days, I'm just like, you know what? There is a decent looking shirt on. The work is the same. I don't like existing in suits all the time. It's not the greatest thing in the world. I prefer dresses, prefer cocktail dresses. I prefer bright colors. My hair is no longer a dingy shade of brown to try to make the red go away. And one of the wonderful things about entrepreneurship, and if you're starting your own business and you're working on this, you learn very quickly, right? Marketing is something that most of us didn't learn. That's not what we went to school for. And suddenly all of those things that you were trying to hide, all those things that you were trying to conform within, right, to another community, those are suddenly the things that become your marketing. Those are suddenly the things that make your business different. I'm like, okay, wait, no. So the bright colors and the dresses and the red hair. Yes, let's go. This is so much more fun. So that was really lovely.
Yeah. So what fears and doubts came up as you started that transition from that traditional law career into something that was a real online and soul aligned business for you?
I mean, of course, the fear of like, what if this doesn't work? Certainly. What if what I'm saying is stupid? What if what I'm saying is wrong? In a traditional law firm setting, you have, especially in the bigger firms, there are 20 other lawyers in your department that you can be like, hey, this is what I think. Do you think this is right? When you go it on your own, especially when it's just you at first, you don't have that backup. And you quickly figure out, I think, a stronger definition of community. You find genuine friends / colleagues, right? folks that aren't just in the cubicle down the hall, folks that you really would be perfectly fine picking up the phone and being like, hey, does this make sense? You have to figure that kind of stuff out. And then, of course, there was this moment of like, what if I do something wrong? And it took me, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. It took me 2 years to go up my professional liability insurance to like more than the minimum. And the day that I did that, I was just like, of the work that I do, A, my work is better than most lawyers that I see coming across my stuff. This I know, but it's hard to trust that. And B, God forbid I were to ever screw up. The insurance premium that I've got now will more than cover anything that I were to screw up. This does not have to ruin my life. This does not have to ruin somebody else's life. And it gave me a lot more freedom and confidence to be able to be playful in the solutions that I was trying to give to people, which I think is, and look, that's the difference between hiring a consultant of any kind and going into ChatGPT, right? Sure. It's the innovation, and that can only come if we can play and be creative. The reason you work with your consultants, whether that be your marketing consultant or your health coach or your lawyer, is you're looking for somebody to really take all that feedback and read those subtle cues and come up with the creative solutions. So you've got to feel confident that, the mistakes aren't going to kill you. And the mistakes, frankly, most people that enter this world, we're all overachievers anyway.
Yeah, I get it. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, don't we, to never make a mistake, which is just not human for starters. And like you say, maybe not as high impact as we might like to think it is, or we might think it is. So I guess related to that subject, what did success mean to you when you were still in the hustle culture of law? And how do you define it now?
What's funny to me is my definition of success, I don't think really ever changed. It was that I found it harder to obtain in the first version, and it's much easier to get now. So for me, really, the definition of success is I want the ability to travel where I want, how I want, when I want. I want the ability to bring people that I care about to those places in a way that's feasible for everybody, regardless of their situation. I have a 2015 Hyundai Sonata down there in the driveway. She is 10 years old and she's pretty and she runs well. And I love her. And she's cute. She's this cute shade of blue. It's really fun. At the same time, I want business class seats on the plane because I value my sleep, right? On red eyes, I can't be bothered to exist economy. I'll do it like if I have to, but I really don't want to. So having the ability financially to be able to book that flight when I want, having the ability to, this car, I love this car, bought this car for less than $4,000. Fantastic. Having the ability to come and like buy this car, have a means to get around and not worry about it, right? It's not trying to buy an island and make it Necker Island. I want to be able to take care of the things that I need to be able to take care of, to help and take care of the people that I want to be able to help and take care of, and then create some kind of impact around that. My current idea, which is actually amazing, I've got two businesses. I've got a law firm and a small rental residential portfolio. And my hope is that we can eventually leverage the real estate to build a live, work, play community, but specifically for low income, specifically affordable housing in that range above the government assistance, but below where people can actually afford it, and create a community center within that would have folks like you, frankly, coming in and speaking to them every once in a while, of hosting, community nights, of creating soft skills that would help them, live a life that a better version of their life, whatever version of their life it is that they're trying to create. And I can do that because I'm no longer somebody's employee, because I can use my time to build things that I want. And then I can use those things that I've built to be leveraged to build bigger things.
Yeah. I love how you're using your skills to really benefit the people that need it and the communities that need it. Whether that's the guy setting up his board game business in Beirut, or, now this dream that you're nurturing and sort of fanning the flames of essentially at the moment. It's so great to see those skills being used in such a positive way for not just you and your family and what you can create, but for the wider communities as well. So apart from travel freedom and the choices that you can make around the people that you support. Are there any other freedoms that you get from working in the way that you work now on a sort of day-to-day basis?
I mean, of course, when you move from employee status, and I'll say this, not all employees, right? Not all companies treat employees this way. But the standard employee status, I want to take a vacation, I take a vacation. I want to not start work until noon one day, or I want to cut out and go to the beach yesterday with like one of my business besties. I do that. And I have to send a notice to a couple people to rearrange things, but there's no permission asking. I actually had a boss once who got mad at me because I took a colleague to lunch literally across the street to a friend's restaurant. I was trying to work out that we could get a discount to bring clients over there because it was a nice restaurant with a beautiful view. And we took lunch from like 1 to 2:30. I ate lunch at my desk most days, right? I didn't take my lunch. I worked through lunch and I was working 9.5 hours. And she called us screaming, like, where were we? And then we came back and she's like, no, you take lunch at 1:30 maximum. I was like, we did. And it's 2:30. I take an hour and a half lunch break like once a month. This is okay. I had no meetings. I had submitted everything that was pending. I never want to be in that position again. Never want to be in that position again. And I never want to put anybody else in that position. Anybody that works for our company, I'm like, as long as your stuff's done by the deadline, I don't care. And I think that's a way of honestly treating people like adults. This isn't kindergarten. I'm not raising my hand to go to the toilet.
You say even like adults, I treat my teenagers that, your responsibility, you can do your homework at any time. It has to be done before you need to give it in, but you do it when that fits around seeing your friends and playing games with people, all the things that they do, you get to choose because I'm not here to dictate to them, you must do it from 6 till 7 p.m. I don't think that's empowering at all.
No, and as an employer, and I mean, as a parent as well, right? I view my job as creating space and showing folks options that can make their lives easier, that can make their work better, that can make, a stronger routine for them, that's more helpful for them in the future. It is not my job to be your alarm clock and your reminder and your chauffeur. No, my job is to help you learn skills that allow you to continue doing the things that you need to be able to do to exist in this world and have the life you want.
So you talked a bit about shifting from I have to do it all to then building the support systems to start to live the life that you want to live. So it can be really difficult at the beginning to release that control and to start delegating. So how did you do that?
It's killing me. I'm still working on it. I have found, I think the first person that really helped me let go of this, frankly, was somebody to help clean my house, do my laundry, wash the dishes. I've been fortunate enough that both in Lebanon and in Brazil, I have had some absolutely amazing, brilliant, crazy multilingual, 5 languages, people working for me, helping me in my home. And, it still freaks me out a little bit that somebody puts away my underwear. At the same time, in New York, for example, we didn't have a regular person that would help us. I was doing most of the cleaning because in New York, it's more expensive. And seeing how much time I was spending, because you walk into a room and you notice oh, this little countertop's dirty. Let me wipe it down real quick. 45 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, I came in here to get water. This is bad. I have right? And coming into that room to get water, realizing that you've wasted 45 minutes suddenly makes you not feel so bad about somebody else touching your underwear.
I don't know if you find this as well, but it's not just when the thing needs tidying up and cleaning, but it's that clutter that it then creates in your head, which prevents you from being able to show up in your work in the best way. Because having someone help me at home was also the first thing that I did, because seeing mess everywhere, my head couldn't cope. And then my business didn't flow in the same way. So I recognized that was such an important part of my business as well as my living my life as well.
And on top of that, as women, the psychologists have started figuring out so many of us were conditioned as children to be the housekeepers, the tidiers, the cleanuppers. And now it actually creates anxiety for most of us because we were fussed at to keep our rooms clean, to help around the house, to do the dishes. I don't know about you, but from the time I turned 7, I was the one doing the laundry in the house.
Yeah.
And not to say that children shouldn't help by any means. That's not it at all. But women in particular, from the past couple generations, we were groomed that it was our job. And that if something was out of place, it was our fault.
Mm-hmm.
And letting go of those kind of childhood beliefs is really tough. And I don't know exactly how possible it is, to be quite frank. But what is possible is hiring somebody to come and make sure they're the ones tidying up for me.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to talk about trademarking, which I know is one part of your business. So why do you see that not just as the smart thing to do, but actually, particularly for women, why is that really important for women in business?
So depending on where you look in the world, the last time we were able to check was 2023, because that's when we got all the global data. Less than 10% of the intellectual property in the world is held by women. Wow. Some countries, it's a little bit higher. Some countries, a bit lower. Of course, there's some flexibility in this, but globally, as of 2 years ago, less than 10% of the IP in the world was held by women.
Nice.
And when I say IP, that's a very broad term to a lot of people. And what they don't realize is that if you look around your house right now, it is full of intellectual property. This little painting behind me, it's a fish with some bubbles and resin. The artist who created that wanted to print that and make that print. That's intellectual property. This conversation, the second it finishes recording and can be consumed by another person, is intellectual property. The framework that coaches use to help their clients get through whatever transformation it is they're offering them, that can be intellectual property. The logo on your phone, the logo on your computer, the logo on your luggage, that's all intellectual property. And it all exists to protect the unique creativity of the individual who made it for centuries. I mean, literally centuries, right? Women, if they have been in a position to be able to create, have regularly had to give their creations to somebody who was allowed to promote them.
Right.
Not them. Despite the fact that women have certainly been creating just as much, if not more.
Gosh, that's blown my mind in the same way of when I found out that it was literally within my lifetime just that women were allowed to have a bank account with their own name on it.
My grandmother is one of those people. My mother couldn't open a credit card.
Wow. Yeah. And then to lift your idea to a man to be able to promote and sell it, that's incredible, isn't it?
And pray that the contracts are strong enough and that the man is nice enough to not screw you over for having given him your idea.
Yeah. Oh,
that was our only defense for the longest time.
Yeah.
That is utterly insane to me. So now there are statistics from last year. Women have actually overtaken men in the people who started new businesses last year in the United States.
Wow. Fantastic.
The numbers of Black and Latina female business owners have skyrocketed. Women are clearly, statistically, getting on board with the idea of entrepreneurship, business ownership, creation in a way that they can own. And the best way to protect creation that you own is through intellectual property.
Because there's a gap there, isn't there? If only 10% of the registered IP are with women, but yet 50% of the entrepreneurs are female.
Yep.
There's a mismatch there in those numbers somewhere. I appreciate there's a year between them, but even so.
And it shows, though, very clearly that it's no longer a trend that women are starting businesses.
Yeah.
Right? It is the future.
Yeah.
They are overwhelmingly the people that are creating the future that we're going to see. And thank God.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me because the female brain or the female energy is naturally more creative, nurturing, it lends itself to women being entrepreneurs. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And I'm really happy that there's going to be, or there are more women coming into business because I think we bring a great quality into business leadership.
Well, and particularly, right, I don't want women going into business ownership to create jobs for themselves. We're starting to see now, there was a huge boom in entrepreneurship about 45 years ago. And a lot of the folks that were that first boom in entrepreneurship are the folks who run your dry cleaner, your bakery, the small grocery store down the road. And a lot of those folks are wanting to retire now.
Right.
And they are selling their businesses, frankly, for very low amounts because a lot of them never had the mindset of how do I create something that's sellable?
Yeah.
How do I create a business rather than a job for myself? A lot of these folks, they have businesses.
Yeah.
But what they did is they created a job for themselves as the managers of those businesses, not necessarily as the owners.
And I think as entrepreneurs in the personal brand space, that's such an important conversation to be having about how do you create an asset that has value rather than, like you say, something that's going to just pay you, give you the freedom and, all of the other things in the now. How do you create something that's a legacy then that you can take forward for the future? So what mindset shift do you think every female entrepreneur could do with when it comes to owning intellectual property and ideas?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, if you have a very systems operational brain, a really good way to think about it is, how can I systematize this so I could hand somebody else a book and they would understand completely what it is that I do? Because that is the difference between creating a business and making yourself a manager. In my space, in the trademarking world, creating brand recognition, uniqueness around your services, your product, and attaching that to the name, right? When folks say, hey, I need a new piece of luggage. Oh my God. They're not going to list off all the features of the luggage. They're going to tell you the name of the luggage, and then you're going to go Google it, and then you're going to go dig around on that website, and you might buy the luggage, right? Creating that kind of recognition, even if your business is very small, even if you're micro business, it doesn't matter. People still talk. Word of mouth is the strongest brand recognition you can create, but purposefully making sure that you're then going and registering it, protecting it, so nobody else can copy all the work that you've done. Or even worse, create an inferior product under the same name, and then suddenly you start getting bad reviews over a product that's not yours. So thinking of ways to really brand recognition, systematize. If you can hand off your company to somebody else tomorrow without you in it, you have a proper business, right? We've created real ownership there rather than a managerial position for you.
So how did your time in Beirut shape your view of the world and your courage and the way that you now show up in your business?
Being in Beirut was not my first time abroad as an American. And it wasn't even my first time in the region. So I won't say it was a terrible culture shock, but it was my first time on my own place that felt at the same time so different and so amazingly familiar. The hospitality, generally people in Lebanon, reminded me very much of the hospitality that the South in the US is supposed to be famous for. Depends on the day. Of course, there's the cliche idea of there's good people everywhere, there's bad people everywhere. But in particular, I saw in Lebanon, there is such a love for the country from both people from it and anybody who spent time there. I don't know a single person that spent time in Beirut or Sur or Tripoli that isn't literally enamored with the country. And there is a realization very quickly, because I was young when I went to Lebanon. You have neighbors that don't want to engage with you, when you have neighbors that think your existence isn't really valid, that there's a reality of planes breaking the sound barrier and dropping bombs. And something really that the Lebanese taught me was, this isn't something that the individual thinks they can change, but we can make plenty of noise and make sure people are very aware of what we want changed, and then find a way to live around it. What happened when, I don't know, the Israelis were flying overhead, threatening to bomb the city? Folks would go to the mountains, go to grandma's house in the mountains, and they would open their basement to all of their friends who didn't have grandma's house in the mountains, bring a deck of cards and some wood for fire, because probably the electricity was going to go out, and make the best of it. Make the best of it feels almost ridiculous, because it was more than that. It was, if the worst will happen, we're opening our doors to our community. We're taking ours with us to a place that we can offer that safe. Last year, when the Israelis were bombing all over Lebanon, he closed the cafe for business and brought in cots. And this is so much the standard there. We see this in natural disasters, right? This is not an uncommon story. We see it on the news when bad things happen, but we see it on the news, I almost feel like, because it's uncommon in Western society. In Lebanon, it was almost the expectation.
I was just thinking as you were talking there, I wonder whether that would happen if this was in the UK, because it's not a side of people that you tend to see. But we don't live in, thankfully, those, pressured times on a basis. But I just wonder whether, that side of people would come out more strongly if it needed to. And then thinking, and how do we tap into that side of ourselves without disaster? I think is such a kind of missing piece of the jigsaw at the moment, where we just walk past other people and don't see them, don't acknowledge them, don't really understand them. And maybe that all feeds into the mental health crisis that we're all experiencing across the world.
There's a decided lesser version, I think, of community in the Western world. I mean, I spend most of my time in Brazil now, and it's called a por quilo. It's a buffet that you can go to at lunch, and they measure by the weight, and they charge you by the weight for the food. The couple of folks with severe mental illness issues, clearly, that are without homes, that are around me, know they can go to the different por kilos, and normally they'll tip them a plate almost every day at lunch. They try to rotate them so they're not bothering the same one every day, because they can't sustain that. Their businesses too. But it's understood of like, no, man, if you come after lunch and we still got stuff, go for it. And it's just, in the US, I don't see that kind of congeniality. I don't see that kind of care as often. It certainly exists, right? It's not it's not that it's not here at all, but it's not as forward. It's not as clear. It's not as in your face. Yeah. And it definitely makes me question whether I would receive the kind of support that I trust that I would receive in Lebanon, in Brazil, and in so many other places around the world, right? If something were to happen to me here in the US and I needed that.
It's interesting, isn't it? We don't know the answers to those.
I don't. It's a question.
In that place, you don't know quite who's going to have your back, really, do you? But it's a really interesting observation for sure.
Yeah.
So let's just wrap this up. I'd like to ask you now, for the woman who's listening, who feels like she's on the edge of kind of creating something and becoming something different in her next chapter, maybe scared to make that pivot, but really craving that alignment and freedom. What would you say to her?
Take turtle steps, not baby steps, because you're not a baby. But, the old adage of slow and steady wins the race, truly it does. Yeah. Find the small step that takes you closer to that grand idea.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it might just be calling down to your local city council to see if what the regulations are to open a business in your house, to build a shed on the side, or getting a real estate agent's number if you need an office space.
Yeah.
Pricing out the base product for whatever it is you're going to create. That small thing. You don't have to create the whole business plan today. Just do the one turtle step.
Amazing. I think that's so important. We always want to be at the end goal, don't we? And just remembering that there's lots of steps that get there. And in fact, I wrote a social media post just this morning where I was just reflecting on those same things.
There's people that are much better suited than I for create the grand vision, imagine all of this. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
Right? Go listen to other episodes for that. I know they're here. Go listen to that. And then come back and be like, all right, what's the turtle step?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the time you add all those steps up, you look backwards and you're like, wow, I've come a long way. So amazing. Yeah. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Samantha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen.
Given a really interesting perspective with that sort of legal outlook, but also that kind of challenging the norms of what you're expected and should be and look like. And so, really, really enjoyed this conversation and hearing from you. So thank you so much.
This was fun. Anytime I get to talk about, travels or storytelling, it's always a good day in my book.
Amazing. Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming Unapologetically Me. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode.